We meet in an hour of change and challenge, in a decade of hope and fear, in an age of both knowledge and ignorance. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So today we're here with Dejan Paravan, the Chief Innovation Officer at GENI. Dejan, welcome to the Energy Impact Podcast. It is great to have you here.
Hi to everybody, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Now, GENI is one of the fastest growing and most innovative companies in the European energy market. And it's also the first Slovenian supplier of exclusively carbon-free electricity. Congratulations. You're operating in 20 plus countries for electricity, 8 countries for natural gas. You have a 23.5% share of the end customer electricity market in 2019, which makes GENI, for the 8th year in a row, the largest supplier of electricity in Slovenia. And you're the Chief Innovation Officer. That's an amazing achievement. Tell me about your background. How did you get to your role? What do we need to know?
So my background is in power engineering. And actually, when I was doing my PhD, I did it with, at that time, my mentor, Professor Dr. Golob. Mm-hmm. And the research and the PhD was on electricity markets, which were at that time. This was just on the when the new millennium started, and the electricity markets started all over the world, and especially in Europe. Mm-hmm. At that time, my research was focused on hedging strategies and portfolio optimization of a power producer on electricity market. Mm-hmm. So a lot of modeling, optimization of operation of power plants, price forecasting, and all that stuff. And when I finished, or just before I finished the PhD, Dr. Golob went into the business, and he took me with him. And actually, this is how the whole story started. So actually, we started the whole journey of GENI in 2004. We were backed by some blue chips here in Slovenia. And then after 2 years, also one state utility company, a big producer, also jumped into our shareholder structure. Mm-hmm. But we started from zero, actually, from scratch. And in all this year, yes, now we are 500 plus employees. We are on all those markets that you mentioned before, and with more than 2 billion euros of annual revenue.
So for a bit of background there, why 2004? Why did the opportunity for GENI come? Was there a decentralization, a liberalization of the market? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. So the market opening in Slovenia started in 2001. And also it was very similar in all other European markets. Actually, the deadline for all European countries to liberalize whole electricity market was in 2007. So, in those years, markets started evolving, and actually this was our purpose, our mission, to bring the benefit of market to end consumers. Mm-hmm. And of course, also to tackle all the opportunities that open market brings in terms of energy trading. Mm-hmm. That's why we established this company, and we started with trading and supply business. Then when these power producers, as I mentioned before, enter our shareholder structure, we were also our goal was also to market their production and to hedge it, and also to take care in case of eventual malfunctions or that happen in operations. And this is how everything started. So in 2009, we entered also the household market here in Slovenia, again from zero. Now we have the biggest market share. And in 2012, we entered also the gas market, because the gas market and the liberalization of gas market, similar also in other European countries, also in Slovenia, lagged a little bit behind. Again, the competition was not there. Everybody were looking at us. Come on, guys, you brought free market in electricity. Why not also on gas? And it was quite a tricky situation, but then we entered it and also shaked a little bit also that part.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the size and the scale. So not many people are familiar, or as familiar as we might hope they would be, about Slovenia itself. It's just east of Italy, it's south of Austria, its eastern and southern borders are with Hungary and Croatia. The square area is about equal size to Massachusetts, if you need a state comparison, but the population is much smaller. Massachusetts has nearly 7 million people. Slovenia only has 2.1 million. What is the size and the makeup and composition of the country? How does that impact how GENI does business?
Well, Slovenia is small. Also Europe as a whole, it's quite fragmented. It has an effect. Why? Because we are positioned and surrounded with a lot of markets, so there is a lot of interconnections. And when you think about markets, the more interconnections are, more opportunities are for optimization, so markets can bring more benefit. So this is one thing. And second thing is that yes, because Slovenian markets is small, sometimes big players, they have so long stride that they just pass over. Okay, so this was the exact reason why the situation on gas market in Slovenia kept, although the legislation was liberalized in 2007, but it took then 4 or 5 years before us entering the market and shaking the whole situation. Now the question is, I think that the big players, due to the smaller size, were not incentivized that much to entering this new market. And we then just took that opportunity that was there.
So there's a new market player. You guys entered. The traditional markup is generation, transmission, distribution. Where did you fit in that supply chain?
So initially we started with trading, and then immediately started also with supply to B2B customers. We started that in 2005, and then as I said, 4 years later we added also households. Currently we are focused more into households, because that part of the market is much more vivid and interesting. So these are the two main pillars. By time, although already quite in the very beginning, so 2007, 2008, we started also with PPAs, small PPAs, because there was a certain legislation in Slovenia which allowed to power producers who produce from renewables to go on the market. They were somehow motivated to go into the market, so we started already there with PPAs, how to bring them as much value as possible from the market. And this was actually, those were two main pillars. So trading and supply were two main pillars in our evolution. And then about 5 years ago, due to a whole bunch of trends in energy transition, the evolution of new technologies and so on, we recognize that, first, this is a big opportunity for our business to focus into new energy services. And the second, we also recognized a great purpose, so that we help our customers and customer base to decarbonize and to lower their carbon footprint of their operations. So then we actually started of thinking how to do that, developing several products. And then we added different services from demand response programs, so the aggregation function, then solar program. So we are the biggest residential rooftop solar installer here in Slovenia. And then also other services. So this third pillar, let's call it, energy services or all kind of energy services, it's now emerging. It's not that big as the first two, but we believe that in 5 to 10 years will be even bigger than one of those first initial.
That's very interesting. Let's focus on one of the specific things that you mentioned. Whereas you're selling to residential, and that market is clearly growing for you. You actually led the team that introduced that service, and I believe that you took over 10% of the market in under 4 years. Congratulations.
No, that was even. It's not correct. Yeah.
No.
This was when we entered the gas market, and this is actually still, it was at that time was the biggest or the most successful campaign on any energy market worldwide, because we acquired 20% of residential gas market in less than 2 months.
Wow.
In less than 2 months. And this was actually the situation. It was our people who did extremely good job, but also, the competition play a role, because they somehow kept the Slovenian market under the radar, so that outside players from outside didn't enter Slovenian market. And on the other hand, they without competition, they were a little bit slipping. So they brought the market to the point in which the situation to disrupt it in terms of market was perfect. And that's why, the situation evolved like with speed of light, and when we entered it was autumn 2012. Yeah, in that time, in less than 2 months, we acquired 20% of the market. The peak was actually 1% of the market per day. Wow. on the spike, which is enormous, because on some markets the churn rate is few percent per year of the whole market, not per day.
What encourages a company or an individual to switch? Is it price? Is it online services? Is it access? What is that innovative feature that you can either get someone to come over or might entice them to leave if you're not doing a good job?
Yeah. Well, at that time, it was price, obviously. Yeah, it was price with combination of easy access and trust into the GENI, because we built a huge trust in our customer base, that we keep the promise, and people then didn't have any problem into switching. But the biggest difference at that time was price. Now, let's say 10-15 years later, the price, of course, still matters, but it is far away the only motivation factor. And since and this is also something that we observe also in many other markets throughout Europe, that price only is just not enough. And we are more talking of not the lowest price, but we are talking about fair price, okay, predictable price, fair price without some hidden stuff. And this is something that you need to have. And second is loyalty, which you need to build with relationship and how you behaved in past, actually.
Okay. Now, the GENI group is operating in Austria and Italy, Bulgaria, Serbia, Croatia, Macedonia, Kosovo, Albania, Greece, several other countries as well. Can you provide an introduction of how electricity pricing and purchasing functions across Europe? Does it change country to country, or is it relatively uniform for countries that have an interconnected grid?
So actually, usually each country its own market, and usually each country is also each regulating zone. So it has an own TSO, which takes care, and actually also that country is usually a pricing zone. Okay, so this is how everything started. Then with passing of years and with passing of European legislation, the European Union took a lot of effort into harmonizing the common or establishing a European electricity market. Now, when establishing a common European electricity market, this doesn't mean that the price is equal all over, but this means that the rules are harmonized somehow, and they are as much as possible unanimous. In such a way, you can provide with easy access and easy entering into the market to foreign players, so to bring up competition, and to have clear rules in terms of how to accessing the market and then exchanging the energy between the countries. Now, the particularity of Europe is that all these countries and all these markets are very well interconnected. So this is a little bit different to US, and this is also at least one of the reasons I think that we don't face such issues like you face, guys, in Texas now, or previously in California and so on, because the markets are more interconnected, and that's why the whole system is more robust. So then with evolution, the markets got also in terms of how the prices are set and how you trade with energy, got much more linked, so that you have different, much easier access to energy, and everything is becoming much more efficient, and also the prices are converging due to this efficiency, although they are not equal. So there are some patterns which countries, and then you have always, of course, explanations and some reasoning behind why different parts of Europe have different price level. And this is not connected to, let's say, GDP or wealth of the country. So it doesn't mean that the poorest countries have the lower wholesale price, at least when we talk about wholesale price, which is obvious. But it goes just with demand and supply.
So are countries able to subsidize the prices to make it more affordable for their population and their industries, or no?
Less and less. It depends still on market when we are talking about residential customers. Okay, when we talk about big industry and B2B segment, at the opening of the market, there were some segments which were heavily subsidized. Nowadays, all those subsidies gone away. With it was a process. It didn't happen just overnight. But today, I could not tell that some big industry have subsidized. You have some special programs which then help those heavy industries. But the laws in Europe are very strict in that regard. You cannot do the subsidies, at least hidden subsidies. So it's very rare that this would happen. When we talk about residential markets, there it's a little bit more tricky. It depends from market to market. Still, on some markets, still you have, although you have the open market for residentials, you still have some very strong state-owned players who provide almost regulated option, and then depending on where that price is settled, it affects a lot what happens on the market.
When do you think there may be a convergence where most prices in Europe are actually identical?
Well, I my belief is that this will never happen because it cannot happen. Because if the market show what is the true value. Now, if in some part you have cheaper production, then it makes totally sense that the wholesale price is lower. So I don't think that the prices will ever converge to the same level. But I believe that already now they give a very good signal where the prices are higher. So that means that those who invest into the production have a clear picture where to invest, where the wholesale prices are higher or tend to be higher. So the prices will converge with time, but I don't think that they will, be all the time equal everywhere.
So you mentioned earlier that you're working with PPAs and there's multiple different types and considerations, virtual versus regular. Have you seen a rise in embedded generation or a rise in PPAs between independent power producers and off-takers? Where's that trend going?
Yeah, I think that the trend is extremely positive in last year, especially in last years. Partially is due to the fact that the cost of renewables are falling. So this is one thing which is extremely important, because in some countries the cost fell that low so that they don't need any subsidy for those projects. We are talking about solar projects in, I don't know, Spain, or wind projects in Northwest and so on. Second reason is that corporate customers are more and more aware, and they want to invest in solar or renewables, and especially they want to invest in on-site projects, because then the grid parity is set much higher than the wholesale price, and those are low-hanging fruits which are on the market.
If they want to build on-site embedded generation, is it uniform across countries where they can connect directly to that power generation? Or do those entities that are setting up, whether it be the company itself or a subcontractor provider, do they have to provide back to the grid and then purchase back through a PPA? How does that work?
Yeah, now, this regulation is more depending on country to country. So here we have some, general rules. We call them directives from European Commission. But then you have local specifics which depend on country to country. So, for example, in many countries you can do this, so that you can put embedded power generation on your site. At least, for example, in Slovenia, you can do this. It can be either, a cogeneration plant, for example, or a rooftop solar or similar. And then, it depends how you size that production. Either you consume all the electricity on site, which is of course beneficial because you avoid paying the grid costs and other taxes and levels otherwise, which you would need to pay if you would offtake electricity from the grid. And if you don't consume that energy on site, you just put it into the market and just conclude the market contract, and this works, and it's completely no problem.
Is it faster to develop some projects in some countries than others? Or is it, generally speaking, once you're in the EU, it's going to take the same amount of time to develop a 50 megawatt solar development or a hydro development in Slovenia versus Austria?
No, unfortunately, not yet. Yeah, I believe that European Commission is the wish, of course, is that the rules are harmonized, because then the whole market benefits out of that. But no, the states still have state legislation, which is in some parts different. And when it comes to real life projects, details matters.
Yeah. Which countries do you think are most innovative, most progressive, and are approaching the environment and energy production in the overall market with the most vigor?
Well, usually when you observe Europe, the most progressive markets, when talking about opening the markets, and also when talking now about sophisticated, let's say, green energy services and so on, are usually northwest part of Europe. So we're talking of Nordic market, Great Britain, Benelux, and so on. And then, you know, the continental or the central Europe follows, and the South and Southeast Europe. So if you look for the best practices in Europe, you should look into Northwest in general. Okay.
All right. Now let's move away from the European market and let's focus on you. And we don't have very many opportunities to talk to people such as yourself, Chief Innovation Officer at GENI. What is innovation in the energy sector?
Well, innovation by itself means something new which brings value. Okay. So when we are talking about energy sector, and we are talking something new and brings value, always it comes in mind to me, new services linked to energy transition. So here I see a lot of opportunities, and here see also a lot of value that we can bring to customers and that we can bring into the market. So for that reason, if I would need to choose, this is the field, these are the trends which I believe that a lot of innovation will happen, is happening, and they will shape not only energy markets, but also our living as a whole.
So in a way, innovation almost means progress, moving forward and making things a little bit better. Oftentimes people in energy talk about decarbonization, decentralization, digitization, which are all items that I know that you're focused on. What are some of the initiatives that you've put in place over the last decade, or that you expect to focus on in the future over the next 10 years or so?
Okay, so in let's say in last 5 years, we put a lot of emphasis into one of those Ds, and this one is digitalization. Okay, digitalization in terms of how to benefit out of data, and how to also bring everything into the data. So we embedded digitalization trend in all our segments, and also in all, you know, either it goes into the processes, either it goes into the how we build the strategies when entering into the market, either it means the relationship with our customers. So next thing what we did is that we heavily increased our development department and analytics department. So if I said that we have 500 plus people at GENI, our you know, the number of analysts for whatever reason in GENI is around 70-80 people. Okay, so this is quite huge, and so we want to, you know, to make our decisions based on data, so data-driven decision. So the digitalization is one thing, and the second thing is decarbonization. Decarbonization in terms of, okay, what can we do, which services can we develop in order to help our customers to decarbonize. And one of initiatives which you mentioned earlier was that we deliberately decided that from 1st of January this year, we will not supply any more carbon-based electricity to any of our customers. That means a portfolio of about more than 3 terawatt hours, just roughly to have an impression, and supplying, you know, about 400,000 customers. So they can choose, you know, whether to choose nuclear, solar, hydro, but we don't supply carbon electricity anymore.
Is that only within a specific country's market? So if you live in a market that has no nuclear, but GENI operates there, can you select nuclear energy from another country?
Yeah, in Europe, we have a special system in that regard. It is called guarantees of origin. Mm-hmm. So this is a parallel system to electricity, which takes care and is, it's officially set system in EU, where you can, where regulators and all institutions back this system so that it's totally clear which production and which source is linked then with consumption. So the markets also here are interconnected. So you can buy those certificates from Spain, for example, and then supply it in Slovenia, for example. So you can do that, yeah.
How granular does that get? Can I say, I specifically want to buy nuclear energy from Crisco power plant or Crisco? Yeah. Or is it just, I want nuclear in general, and then it lets GENI go and do all its magic on the back end?
Yeah, so it goes to megawatt hour. Okay, so this is the minimum lot, and the resolution is in general per year basis. You can go to per month basis. But the operation costs, if you would, usually what you do is that either you do it, if you do it customer based, you usually do it per those big customers. Otherwise, you do it per portfolio. So you define your portfolio of customers, let's say residential customers, or you could have different portfolios, and then actually you back the supply to that portfolio with those guarantees of origin, and in such a way you guarantee that the electricity supply to that portfolio was from a specific source.
And then if GENI is sitting in the middle, are you purchasing and then reselling at a markup? Or what's the opportunity and the reason that people would purchase directly from GENI and not say, oh, I need 20 megawatts of power for my mine or my aluminum smelting facility, I'm going to reach out directly to the power plant? Is that even allowed?
Well, of course it's allowed, but then you need to establish the whole infrastructure, So of course you could do it, a customer could do it, but also by himself. It's just it makes no economic sense. So usually you go to a specific supplier or somebody who can deliver this service so that he can do it for you, because otherwise it makes just no sense. Okay. So this is mainly the reason.
Okay. Let's switch back to the EU then. So the European Commission, under the governance regulations, said that all member states had to submit their national energy and climate plans, which is effectively saying a clear path from 2021 to 2030, focusing on areas like renewables and energy efficiency, greenhouse gas emission reductions, interconnections, R&D, things of that nature. Now, at first, people said nobody's going to hit the targets. It's just not on track. And then the big elephant in the room hit COVID. And now things are looking maybe okay. People hit it. How is COVID actually impacting right now? Do you think that with vaccines coming out, that there might be an increase? Where is COVID impacting your life?
Okay. So if I'm thinking about our company, okay, how COVID is impacting our life, it made our life last year very difficult, okay, because it shaked the markets, it produces, it lowered the consumption. So when you are supplying customers and taking volume risk on you, and if your customers are utilizing 20% less electricity than they should do, and you need to go into the spot market with those quantities, then it's not nice. It doesn't look nice. So from that perspective, I believe that supply companies last year have difficult time in Europe due to COVID. Also, the markets were shaking a lot and so on. But if we look at the longer term trend, and if we look at least GENI and also other companies, we are not alone, who bet on digitalization, on decarbonization, on energy transition, and so on, the COVID situation speed up all those trends. So it means just, okay, we are in the right direction. Now we just go faster. So from that perspective, I believe that this situation will, on long run, produce some positive results, because the innovation and the whole progress will go faster.
Do you think that the demand and the growth for individual countries has changed because of COVID? And where do you think the most demand and growth will be in the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, for sure. For example, if we look at the last year results, for example, I can tell you the results for Slovenia just for benchmark. Last year consumption compared to 2019, I just saw those results a few weeks ago, was about 7-8% lower on annual level per business customers, but the residential segment was 5% higher. So 5 to 10% difference in consumption on energy markets is huge. Yeah, this is something huge.
Significance, yeah.
Okay, this is significant. So also the consumption in most European markets, okay, dependent from market to market, but in the first wave of COVID, we are talking about March, April, May, impacted heavily the consumption in our countries. So the consumption fell by 20-30%. So it was a huge shock. We are not back yet, but the positive thing is that the second wave in this winter, although the COVID numbers which were much higher than they were during the first wave, the fall in demand was much less intensive. I explain myself this just by the fact that the industry, the companies, the countries just managed to somehow live with COVID, and they managed that not everything stops like during the first wave. Which is somehow positive, because the industry and the economic development goes on, and that the impact is not that heavy as it was in spring 2020.
Do you think that some countries may experience an accelerated growth coming out of COVID, almost like a whiplash effect?
I don't see that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, because I also think that we will need 1, maybe 2 years that we will come to 2019 levels, so that that some country will explode in terms of growth. I just don't see that yet.
All right. Now, if many countries are decommissioning dirty energy, they oftentimes need to replace that energy, even if things are just holding flat, with clean energy. What are some of the problems and challenges that new power generation may encounter? And what do you think could be done on a policy level or otherwise to accelerate and streamline that growth?
Well, this is a very good and interesting topic, because different countries approach this topic differently, and all in a context of what is their backpack, okay? So you have some countries which are heavily dependent on coal. They don't have much options, and of course their ambitions are much less than some other countries. So from that reason, you need to look a little bit deeper to understand all those circumstances. But nevertheless, what I believe it will happen is that when we, and this is also something that we pay a lot of attention, because we understand how the energy business works, and also how the electricity power system functions, is the impact on the grid. And the whole electrification trend and, putting renewables into the grid, we need to do it in a smart way, because if we don't do that in a smart way, then the penetration into the grid, or sometimes we call it grid hosting capacity, will just not be enough in order to realize our targets. So this is something that we pay a lot of attention.
Who's doing it the best right now? If you said, this is the person, this is the entity, this is the country that should put on the master class for everyone else to learn from, who is that entity?
I think that a lot of countries are putting a lot of effort. So there are a lot of demonstration projects, pilot projects, and so on. So we already have some, because what I see is that in order to achieve this, we will need to change our way of planning, and we will need to change our way of operating the power system. And here I see the opportunity and a need of rise of localized flexibility markets, not only on country, so let's say TSO level, but also on DSO level. And the countries which have such schemes are, for example, in Great Britain, in Benelux. So we are talking about that part, but not only. So we have also some other countries which are experimenting. For example, in Slovenia, we also have it was a cooperation with our system operators, and we have a local flexible market, so that end consumers, also small, can provide grid services to the grid in terms of smart grid functionalities.
Okay. What's something that we didn't touch on today that you think that we should talk about?
When we are talking that Slovenia is small, okay, but we have, also, so maybe that your listeners will know where Slovenia is. We have one big guy, which is Luka Doncic, which is making a very good impression in US currently.
Okay. And the last question for you is, what's something that's exciting you about GENI in the context of the European energy market?
Well, the whole thing of energy transition, and that we have big opportunities in terms of developing new solutions for our customers. So I believe that the energy itself, or the energy sector, is really in front of, on one hand, big challenges, but on the other hand, also on very meaningful purpose of doing good for people and also for our planet. So this is what energizes me and gives me motivation when working at GENI, but not only. And this is also where I see a huge, opportunity for future.
All right. Dejan Paravan, Chief Innovation Officer at GENI. I don't think we could leave it on a better note. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and thanks for having me. Bye.
Love you. Take care.
Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men and for the progress of all people.